Good afternoon. So we are here to talk about networking, and we're going to talk both about online tools to help you establish your contacts and offline or actual in-person, face-to-face opportunities to meet people. So much of networking is just about meeting people, learning about others, getting ideas that might help you with your career. And so we want to talk about some tools to help you leverage that. So we'll talk, when we're talking about online, we're going to focus specifically on LinkedIn. And because of the time of year that we are in terms of the interpersonal offline stuff, we're going to focus primarily on the various holiday events and social gatherings that a lot of bar associations and professional organizations have. But obviously the tips we talk about will transcend the holiday season and are appropriate any time of year. So let's talk for a while about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a huge social network that is focused primarily on professionals. So you might have a Facebook account where you're interacting with your friends and people you've grown up with and people you know socially, but LinkedIn is really the opportunity for you to interact with people in a professional context. It is enormous and it continues to grow. So right now, I checked on their website as of maybe 2 weeks ago, they have 135 million members in over 200 countries. And that is growing. Every time I check their website to see their stats, I mean, it's just growing exponentially. And so that tells you that that's a good resource for you. There are lots of opportunities for you to connect with folks and that this is a growing medium for you to meet people. There's a real opportunity here for you to expand your network, and we'll talk about what that means. But really, it's to meet other people who share your professional goals, who may have some information and resources for you, or that you may be able to help out along the way. And what I like about LinkedIn, as opposed to maybe just giving somebody a resume, is that it helps you control or manage your reputation. So that if you've decided fairly late in the game that you have a new focus for your career, and you don't have any work experience, you could still formulate your profile to show people you have interest and expertise in that area. So if people were to find you on LinkedIn, you can kind of control the way they see you or what they know about you and sort of define the persona you want them to have about you. It's also an opportunity for you to really build relationships and build on the relationships you already have. So one of the sort of founding principles of LinkedIn is that it builds on that 6 degrees of separation concept, so that, I know the people I know, but maybe Bailey knows a whole other group of people. And it turns out that I want a job with this company, and I figure out that Bailey knows someone at that company. So I might use my connections through LinkedIn to ask her to maybe make an introduction to help me meet that person over there. And so it helps you identify who the people you know, maybe there are points of interest or points in common, and it helps reduce barriers between you and the folks you'd like to meet. So we're going to talk about 4 main steps to getting started with LinkedIn. You're going to create a profile. We're going to talk, and we'll talk a little bit about how to, some strategies in creating your profile. We'll talk then about how do you enhance your presence. So once you have that presence on LinkedIn, what can you do to really maximize it? We'll talk about how to build your network, and then what do you do once that network is established? How do you cultivate your contacts and continue to build and grow? It's not enough to just say, well, I set up my LinkedIn account and it didn't work, or nothing happened. Okay, this is something like that you have to maintain and monitor and cultivate, like all of the other tools that you're using. It's an ongoing process. So how many of you have a LinkedIn account set up already? So we'll talk a little bit. I'm not going to go necessarily nuts and bolts into every element of it, but we'll talk first about creating your profile, and just to give you a sense of what we're talking about and what it might look like. So when you log into LinkedIn, this is what you're likely to see. So I just set up this account yesterday, so it doesn't have a whole lot of stuff in it. And what you want to do is go to the profile section. And this gives you an opportunity to edit your profile. So a couple things here. Right now, it's pretty much a blank slate. But each of these pieces of information is quite helpful, because what you want, people are going to find your profile in a variety of different ways. People might search you by name. Let's say you apply for a job. It's not uncommon for employers to look up applicants that are on their interview roster that they're considering to learn more about this person. Let me see what their background is. So they might look for you, and so searching by name makes sense. Maybe if you're sending an invitation to someone and they want to get a sense, oh, who is that person again? They might click on your profile to get a sense of who you are. But people might also find you by searching key terms. Maybe they want to meet a student who has a litigation background or has an interest in employment law. And certainly once you're attorneys and you're out practicing, people might say, oh, we're looking for someone with an IP background. So they might search on key terms. So you want to make sure that all of these different areas where you can put information about yourself, you're embedding those key terms. And you almost want to think about this backwards. If someone were to do a Google search for me, how would they find me? Or how do I want them to find me? If I want to create this image of myself as an employment lawyer, or an IP lawyer, or a family lawyer, what are the words people would Google, and how do I embed them in my profile? One of the great things about LinkedIn is that it has a high search engine optimization. So if someone were to Google things, LinkedIn tends to be the first thing that pops up, or very high. And so this is a place where people are likely to find you. So we'll just kind of look at this screen. Top of the screen there, it's encouraging you to add a photo. I strongly encourage you to add a photograph, but it should be a professional photograph.
No cake stands.
I'm sorry?
No cake stand photos.
No, and but really, I've seen quite a range. And in fact, one of our professors served jury duty recently, and the attorney in the case, Deputy DA, was dressed kind of provocatively, she thought, for a jury trial. And so the professor then Googled her and found her LinkedIn page, and sure enough, her LinkedIn photo was inappropriate for professional context. We'll just say that. You are creating an image, and you're at that point in your careers where image is important because you don't want people to see you as a student. You want them to see you as a lawyer and as a professional. So you have to look the part. So you don't necessarily have to go pay a photographer for a fancy headshot, but maybe put on your suit and have a friend take a picture, a good quality picture, and upload it here. But it makes a huge difference. It's also important when you're trying to connect with people and they may not remember your name. Seeing your picture may, oh, that's right, I remember who that was, and that helps put it all together. You then have an opportunity to add all kinds of information about your background, what you're doing now, what you've done in the past, and these are opportunities for people to find you. There are all these different tools within LinkedIn that will help you find other people. So once you put your schools in, it'll help you find people who attended your schools at the same period of time. When you put your various employers in, it might help you find people who work for those same organizations too. And so those can be helpful tools in building your network. So it's important to put as much information there as you possibly can. I want to go back here where it says, this sort of headline area or summary area. Well, this headline, you want to be very careful and clever about what you put here. So right now this just says student at Golden Gate University School of Law, and that's fine. It's truthful, it's accurate, but it's not doing anything to sort of create an image of this person. So if this person wanted to be an employment lawyer, it might say student focusing on employment law at Golden Gate University School of Law. You can sort of be creative with how you frame it. You also want to make sure it's up to date. I recently looked at a colleague of mine's LinkedIn profile, and she still has here the last job that she held, but she hasn't been in that job for, I would say, a good 6 months. So it looks a little bit awkward that her tagline shows her as currently employed in that place when she hasn't been for quite some time. So you want to make sure it's something that either will stand the test of time or that you're going to be very good about monitoring and maintaining. They're all, if you have a Twitter feed, you can link it up here. Of course, you want to be careful if your Twitter feed is not something you want out there for employers to see, and you really want to draw a black line between that persona and this one, then maybe you separate them. Although I will tell you that it's an illusion if you think you can prevent people from finding your presence online. But you don't necessarily have to advertise that stuff if you really want to keep those aspects of yourself separate. I do recommend that you get a personal URL, and I think you can do that here. So you can see where it has all this it's a very tricky link. And so you can set up a link that's a little bit more concise, that has, you know, the LinkedIn website and your name. So I'm just trying to see. Anyway, so we can show you how to do that in the office, but it's helpful to have a personal URL, and then you can take that personal URL and put it on business cards. You could embed it in the signature block of your email address. Some people put it on their resume. And so it's a nice way to invite people to see your profile. It's easier if it's a simple URL with your name in it. I'll show you that actually on mine. So this is mine. And so you see here, my personal URL, it's just the linkedin.com / and / my name. So that makes it a little bit easier for people to figure out. So here I'll show you, instead of showing you the generic one, this is my profile, which, you know, it can always be improved, but it has this nice little feature where it prompts you as to what you need to do to make your profile more complete. So you'll see on this, the brand new one we set up, you know, it's only 15% complete because basically it has a name and what the person's doing now with no other information. And it'll tell you if you add a position, it gets it better. If you add a summary, if you add your specialties, etc. So you want to keep making it more robust and more interesting so people get a better sense about you. So here's what it looks like. So it has a list of where I've worked and my education, and so that might give you a sense, help people find me. And in fact, I have people I worked with 20 years ago have found me on LinkedIn, and so it's been a nice way to connect. It would have been awkward to just out of the blue get a phone call from someone I haven't spoken to in 20 years, but it is completely appropriate in the universe of LinkedIn to get those random contacts. And so you might find if you're feeling sheepish about reaching out to someone, doing it through LinkedIn might reduce some of those barriers. So the summary is very important because this is really where you get to paint that picture of who you are or who you'd like people to see you as. And so you can, design this however you want. That might be something you come in and work with us about, and we kind of sketch it out with you. But what are your areas of expertise? This is a good place to embed those keywords. Actually, what I want to do is show you a profile of a recent graduate, because his experience will be a little bit more akin to where you are, and you can get a sense of how a recent graduate has done that. So this is Luke, and so he's an international tax specialist at PricewaterhouseCoopers. So that's great. Has some key terms about his areas of expertise, as well as his employer. So if people who are searching in either of those, they can find him. He posts articles, and we'll talk about this later, about how that can sort of enhance your reputation by kind of putting interesting articles. But here's something that Luke posted recently. Here's his background. So he's working right now. He's linked his company website here. So here's his summary. So he has a little bit of background about, the fact that he went to school here, the degrees he's earned, his areas of expertise. It's not super long, so it's enough that you can read through it, but it's got a lot of those keywords embedded. He's also taken advantage of that specialties area. And so he's just listed, these are some of the things that he's a specialist in his own estimation. So you don't have to pass a test to be a specialist in this sense, or to have specialties. So again, this is a great way to kind of help people see what you're good at. Yeah.
With the specialties, is there a potential that the more you put, the more it diminishes the
Yes.
potency? So like I'm a specialty in dog walking and international. You know what I mean?
Right.
Does it sort of?
Right. So again, this is about the image you're trying to create. I mean, I might also be a gourmet chef, which I'm not. I'm not going to necessarily put that here if my primary goal is to meet lawyers and people in the legal community. If I'm at a crossroads and I don't know if I'm going down the employment law path or the family law path, that might be a little tricky here because you can only have one profile and you might just have to do both. But you're right, the more different things you put on here, it can dilute it. For him, I think he's focusing both, he's writing and research, which is a skill set. He has tax law, which is an area of practice. Client work, which is another skill set that employers are looking for. So these are not necessarily mutually exclusive things. These are